In the vast stillness of the early morning, before the world stirs from its slumber, there is a silence that speaks. It does not use words, but in its silence, it echoes the deepest truths. This is the silence the Buddha listened to. This is the silence from which transformation begins. And within this silence lies a truth so simple, so subtle, that the world often overlooks it. You do not need to leap. You only need to take one step. A single step toward clarity, a single breath of awareness, a single moment of presence. In the teachings of the Buddha, we are not urged to chase greatness, but to return. Return to the breath. Return to the now. Return to the center of our being. Because transformation is not always loud, it is not always marked by the sound of achievement. Sometimes it is a whisper that says, just this moment, just this breath. What if the path to liberation is not paved with monumental acts, but with tiny awakenings? What if instead of demanding perfection from ourselves, we offered ourselves kindness and the permission to simply improve by 1% each day? The Buddha understood the power of consistency, the power of small intentional acts. When he taught the Eightfold Path, he did not offer it as a destination, but as a direction, a way of living, being, walking. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action. These are not boxes to check, but qualities to cultivate daily, gently, lovingly. Because the mind is like a garden, each thought a seed, each action a drop of rain, each breath a ray of sun. And when we tend this garden, not in frenzy, but in mindfulness, we find that the weeds of craving and aversion begin to wither, and the blossoms of wisdom begin to grow. Improving by just 1% each day is not about doing more. It is about being more present, more aware, more compassionate. Consider this: a drop of water does not carve stone through force, but through persistence. It is not the thunderclap that shapes the mountain. It is the wind, the rain, the time. In the same way, our suffering does not dissolve because we will it away in a moment of frustration. It dissolves because we sit with it. We see it. We do not run from it. And each day, we take one small step toward understanding it. In the Dhammapada, it is written, "As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame." This steadiness, this groundedness is cultivated. It is not inherited. It is grown, slowly, quiet, intentionally. So we begin with 1%. We begin by waking up 10 minutes earlier to sit with our breath. We begin by pausing before we speak and asking, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? We begin by replacing one moment of distraction with one moment of mindfulness. This is not laziness. This is not procrastination. This is the way of the middle path. It is neither indulgence nor self-torture. It is balance. The Buddha never said you must climb the whole mountain in a single day. He simply said, start where you are, with what you have, in this very moment. And this is the power of being just 1% better each day. Not for the sake of achievement, but for the sake of awakening. Not to impress the world, but to return to your true nature. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are on the path. And the path is not somewhere far away. It is under your feet. Each breath, a new beginning. Each step, a sacred act. Each moment, an invitation to awaken. So walk, slowly, gently, kindly, and trust that even 1% when walked with mindfulness can transform the whole of your life. And what is 1%? Truly, it is the space between reactivity and response. It is the blink of awareness before anger takes over. It is the smile you offer instead of silence, the breath you take before speaking, the step you choose to pause. the cup of tea brewed with full presence, the act of putting away your phone to fully listen to being. 1% is so small it almost goes unnoticed. But in the Dharma we are taught, it is not the size of the action, but the depth of its intention that shapes our path. A single drop of metta, loving kindness, ripples far beyond what the mind can comprehend. Look to the Buddha himself. He did not arrive at enlightenment in one great burst of brilliance. His journey was one of quiet persistence. He sat, he watched, he waited, he observed his breath, his thoughts, the arising and ceasing of all things. He became deeply intimate with impermanence, not through theories but through moment-by-moment contact with reality. That is the practice, to meet each moment without resistance, and through that meeting, to soften, to see that suffering does not need to be fought. It needs to be understood, because all that we resist persists, and all that we embrace with clarity and compassion transforms. Let us be honest. The mind loves drama. It wants instant change, grand results, quick fixes. But the Dharma is patient. It knows that true change, the kind that brings peace, must be cultivated, not forced. It is not spectacle, it is subtlety. So we turn toward the small, we wash the dishes with awareness, we eat without the television, we listen without interrupting, we walk with our feet kissing the earth instead of rushing through time, we let silence speak, we speak only when it serves, and in this, we shift just a little, but enough. Each time you choose stillness over distraction, you are watering the seed of awakening. Each time you say no to craving and yes to simplicity, you are walking the path. Each time you forgive, not because they deserve it, but because peace matters more, you are freeing your heart. This is what it means to be 1% better, and yet, do not mistake this for passivity. The path is gentle, but it is not weak. In fact, to be this mindful, this aware, requires immense strength. The strength to swim against the stream of habit, the courage to be uncomfortable, the wisdom to slow down when the world tells you to hurry up. The Buddha taught us that liberation lies in seeing things as they truly are, not as we wish them to be. And to see clearly we must look slowly, we must watch, with curiosity, with patience, without clinging, without pushing away. Just watch. The thoughts that arise, let them arise. The emotions that surface, let them surface. Do not cling, do not judge, just witness. This is mindfulness, this is presence, this is your 1%. And soon, you begin to notice. You are less reactive, less easily disturbed, more at peace with the inevitable changes of life. The weather of the mind becomes less violent. You stop identifying with every passing cloud. You stop saying, I am angry, and instead say, anger is here. That shift, that subtle shift, is the revolution. You are no longer the storm, you are the sky. You are no longer the wave, you are the ocean. This realization doesn't come from books, it comes from living the teaching, from showing up to this moment, again and again, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. There is no enlightenment apart from your daily life. Your enlightenment is hidden in your morning routine, in the way you treat your parents, your co-workers, your body, your inner child. That is why 1% matters. Because transformation does not shout, it whispers, and it whispers in every choice you make. You choose whether to fuel your ego or your compassion. You choose whether to hold a grudge or let go. You choose whether to breathe consciously or unconsciously. And you make that choice not once, but over and over, every day, every hour, every breath. This is what the Buddha meant when he said, with our thoughts, we make the world you experience, the peace, the turmoil, the joy, the sorrow. It is shaped not just by outer events, but by the inner lens through which you meet those events. And the lens can be clean, 1% at a time. So clean it, polish it with mindfulness, wash it with gratitude, wipe away the fog of judgment, and let the light of wisdom shine through. Because the truth is, you are not far from awakening. You are never more than one breath away. Not one lifetime, not one pilgrimage, one breath. Take that breath, now. And know, this breath is sacred. This breath is the gateway to all peace. This breath is your teacher. When you live like this, when you become intimate with your breath, your being, your now, you begin to see the profound beauty in the ordinary. The steam rising from a cup of tea, the way sunlight plays on a wooden floor, the sound of the wind rustling through leaves. These are not distractions from the path. These are the path. And when you walk it with presence, when you show up with just 1% more openness, more stillness, more kindness, you realize you are not walking alone. You walk with every teacher who ever whispered truth. You walk with every being who ever suffered and chose peace. You walk with the Buddha, because the Buddha is not just a man who lived 2600 years ago. The Buddha is the part of you that sees clearly, that loves deeply, that awakens again and again. And all it asks is this: be here, be kind, be just a little more awake than you were yesterday. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is the seed of enlightenment itself. And so, the question is not, how fast can I change, but rather, how deeply can I be with what is? When the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, it was not to escape the world. It was to face it fully, directly, without filters or illusions. To sit with the noise of the mind, the ache of the body, the restlessness of the soul, and to remain steady, still, present. Because the path to awakening does not require us to climb higher. It asks us to sink deeper, 1% deeper into honesty, 1% deeper into surrender, 1% deeper into compassion, not only for others, but for ourselves, especially ourselves. We live in a world obsessed with progress. We chase numbers, accolades, recognition. But in the Dharma, the measure of your growth is not how much you've achieved. It is how gently you breathe, how kindly you speak, how effortlessly you let go. Because the awakened one is not the one who knows the most. It is the one who needs the least. Imagine this. Each day, you shed a little more of the unnecessary, a little less judgment, a little less comparison, a little less attachment to who you think you must be. And with each letting go, you come closer to what has always been true, that you are already whole, that you were never missing anything, that the peace you seek is not elsewhere, not in another life, not in some distant future, but within you, beneath the noise, beneath the striving, beneath the fear. This is why we begin with 1%, not because we are not enough, but because we are peeling back the layers that make us forget we already are. The Buddha taught impermanence as one of the 3 marks of existence. Everything changes, everything arises and passes, and yet how much of our suffering comes from our refusal to accept this. We cling to identities, titles, possessions, relationships, as if they will last forever. But they won't, and they can't, because they were never meant to. And in accepting this, truly accepting this, we are freed. Freed from the burden of trying to make life something it is not. You begin to see that your youth will fade, that your body will age, that people will leave, that moments will pass, and instead of resisting, you bow to the sacred flow of it all. You stop trying to freeze the river. You let it flow through your fingers. And in doing so, you finally taste what it means to live. Because a life well lived is not one where nothing changes. It is one where change is embraced with grace. So each day, choose presence over perfection. Let your goal not be to do more, but to be more awake to whatever you do. That is the shift. from doing to being, from controlling to allowing, from chasing to resting, from fear to love, from absence to presence. And when you live like this, 1% at a time, the world begins to soften, not because it has changed, but because you have. Your eyes no longer seek distraction, they see clearly. Your ears no longer crave noise, they listen deeply. Your heart no longer guards itself, it opens, unafraid. This is the miracle of mindfulness, not in transforming the world, but in transforming how you relate to it. And from that inner shift, outer peace begins to ripple. You begin to speak with more care. You begin to act with more integrity. You begin to love with less fear. You become, without even trying, a refuge for others, a safe space in a restless world, a reminder that stillness is possible, even here, even now. You become the embodiment of the Dharma, not through preaching, but through your presence. And what greater offering is there than that? The Buddha once said, if you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your path. So light your lamp, not in one grand act, but in small sparks of awareness. Breathe deeply before you answer. Speak truthfully, even when it's hard. Say thank you more often. Apologize when you've been unkind. Put down your phone when someone is speaking. Rest when you're tired. Cry when you're hurting. Smile when your heart is full. These are not trivial things. These are sacred. These are what build the awakened life, brick by brick, breath by breath. 1% better, 1% truer, 1% more free. And you don't have to wait for permission. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to begin. The Buddha's final words were simple, powerful, and eternal. Be a light unto yourself. He did not say to follow blindly. He did not say to worship him. He said, look within. Trust the Dharma within you. Walk your own path, with eyes open and heart awake. So walk, not quickly, not with urgency, but with reverence. For this moment is not an obstacle. It is the teaching. This breath is not in your way. It is the doorway. This life, as it is, with all its imperfections and unpredictability, is the exact place where your liberation lives. Do not overlook the now, because hidden in its folds is everything you've been searching for. And it all begins here. One breath, one step, 1%. And if 1% is the beginning, then trust this, that the beginning holds the entire seed of your transformation. A seed does not rush to become a tree. It does not compare itself to the forest. It simply settles into the soil, drinks the rain, and trusts the sun. And this is what you are invited to do. Not to become perfect overnight, not to awaken in an instant, but to root down into each moment, to absorb its lesson, to grow quietly, faithfully, steadily. There is great strength in this kind of gentleness. The world does not always recognize it, but the Dharma does. Because true growth is not loud. It is not desperate. It does not seek to prove itself. True growth is silent, like the lotus rising through mud, like the moon crossing a still night sky, like the heart remembering how to be soft again. And if you ever feel like you are not enough, pause, place your hand over your heart, feel the life pulsing beneath your skin. And remember, the Buddha did not come to show us how to be more. He came to show us how to be free. You were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to be real, to breathe through the struggle, to fall and rise, and fall again, and each time to return to the path, return to the breath, return to the quiet knowing that nothing is wasted, not your tears, not your stumbles, not your heartbreak. All of it is sacred. All of it is part of the journey. This is the teaching hidden within impermanence. Everything changes, so nothing is ever truly lost. Even your mistakes become your teachers. Even your regrets become your refinement. And in this way, life becomes your monastery, not apart from the world, but right in the center of it. In traffic, in heartbreak, in illness, in joy, in aging, in parenting, in grief, in silence. The Dharma is not just for monks in robes. It is for you, the seeker in the city, the mother nursing her child at 2 a.m., the student overwhelmed with doubt, the elder looking back on a life of choices, the worker, the dreamer, the tired soul, the awakening heart. You are not separate from the sacred. You are it. And if you choose, this moment becomes your teacher, not the next one, not a better one, this one. Because the present moment is the only place where life truly happens. It is the only place where healing is possible, the only place where love can be received, the only place where awakening unfolds. 1% better each day is not a strategy. It is a devotion to presence, a devotion to the path, a devotion to the art of becoming deeply human and fully awake. And you may not see the change at first, because the world may not applaud it. But inside, in the quiet spaces where your soul listens, something shifts. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to soften. You begin to release what no longer serves. And then you begin to feel light again. Not because your burdens have disappeared, but because your relationship to them has transformed. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of liberation, not escape from the world, but peace within it. Peace even while washing dishes, peace even in sorrow, peace even when plans collapse, peace that is not dependent on conditions, but rooted in understanding. And how do you reach that kind of peace? One breath, one thought, one act of compassion at a time. You choose not to speak when silence will serve better. You choose to pause instead of judge. You choose to listen, truly listen, with no agenda, no defense. You choose to ask, what would kindness do right now? And then you do that. Even if it's inconvenient, even if no one notices, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard, because in that moment, you are changing your karma. You are breaking the chain of suffering. You are planting seeds not just for your future, but for the future of all beings you will touch. This is no small thing. The Buddha said, drop by drop is the water pot filled. Likewise, the wise person, gathering little by little, fills themselves with good. This is the essence of the 1%. Small drops, tiny moments, invisible choices that create an unshakable foundation of peace, a peace that cannot be disturbed by praise or blame, a peace that does not depend on outer conditions, a peace that is rooted in the truth of impermanence and thrives in the heart of compassion. And so you begin to realize you do not need to escape your life. You only need to befriend it, to bring the lamp of awareness into every corner, to offer love where you once offered fear, to offer patience where you once demanded control, to offer stillness where you once sought distraction. This is not always easy, but it is always possible. And the most beautiful part is this: you do not have to walk alone. Every step you take in mindfulness joins with the footsteps of all those who have come before. Every breath you take in awareness ripples out into the great ocean of collective peace. You are part of a lineage of awakening, not because you have attained something, but because you have begun, because you have chosen to return, to remember, to reconnect. That is all that is needed. The rest, the clarity, the joy, the lightness, it will come, not because you chased it, but because you made space for it to enter. And perhaps now you see that this path is not a burden. It is a blessing. Not a punishment for imperfection, but a homecoming to the truth of your being. The idea that you must be someone else, somewhere else, doing something else. This is the great illusion. But to sit here, now, as you are, to meet your thoughts with kindness, to breathe without running, to simply be, this is the liberation the Buddha spoke of, because the world has always told you, be more, do more, get more. But the Dharma gently whispers, be still, let go, come home. 1% better is not a chase, it is a return to the sacredness of small things, to the grace of patience, to the power of presence. In the smallest act of care, the whole of wisdom is revealed. When you sweep the floor with mindfulness, you are not merely cleaning, you are honoring the ground you walk on. When you speak a word with compassion, you are not just being polite, you are softening the fabric of suffering. When you forgive, truly forgive, you are not excusing the past, you are unchaining your future. This is the alchemy of awakening, turning the ordinary into the holy, not through magic, but through awareness, through deep, loving attention. The Buddha taught us, it is not what we do once in a while that defines our path, but what we choose, moment by moment, in the silence of our heart. And this is why 1%, this tiny measure of effort, of attention, of tenderness, this is enough, because in 1% lives the entire universe. In 1%, the heart cracks open. In 1%, the veil lifts. In 1%, the self dissolves. And in that dissolving, love floods in. Unconditional, undivided, unshaken. You begin to see all beings, not as others, but as mirrors. You see that the one who frustrates you is also afraid, that the one who judges you is also hurting, that the one who abandons you is also longing to be seen. And so you stop expecting the world to give you what it cannot. You stop demanding perfect love from imperfect places. You stop asking life to be anything but what it is. Instead, you begin to offer patience, offer space, offer your listening, your presence, your breath. This is not passivity, it is power. Because the greatest power is not control. It is peace. And peace is born not in the grand gestures, but in the quiet choice to return, again and again, to now, and now, and now, until one day, you look back and realize you are not the same person who began this journey. Not because you became someone else, but because you finally dropped what you were never meant to carry. You no longer cling to the roles. You no longer grip the identities. You no longer fear silence. Because you have come to know yourself, not as a fixed idea, but as an unfolding mystery. A wave within the ocean. A breath within the cosmos. A witness to the dance of it all. And now, you bow to the joy, to the pain, to the beauty of not knowing, to the grace of every step, every setback, every lesson. You bow because you understand this path was never about self-improvement. It was always about self-liberation. To free yourself from the lies that say you are not enough. To free yourself from the stories that shrink your light. To free yourself from the grip of fear, comparison, and doubt. And in that freedom, you realize your life is not meant to be perfect. It is meant to be awake. Awake to the sunrise. Awake to the laughter. Awake to the tears. Awake to the sound of your own breath, as it weaves through the silence like a sacred prayer. Awake to the gift of this moment, which will never come again. So take it. Receive it. Place your hand on your heart. Feel it beating, not for someone else, not for someday, but for now, for this breath, this body, this path, this precious, fleeting, miraculous life. And now, you walk, not because you must, but because it is a joy to do so, because it is an honor to live this life in awareness, to be here, fully, consciously, gratefully, to bow to each sunrise, not knowing how many you will see, to forgive without needing an apology, to love without keeping score, to serve without seeking reward. This is the awakened life, and you don't reach it by force. You arrive through 1% more presence, 1% more honesty, 1% more courage, to face yourself, to meet your edges, to dissolve your illusions. And then, one day, you no longer measure by percent, because you are no longer trying to be better. You are simply being alive, awake, free. The path is no longer a journey you walk. It is what you are. You become the breath. You become the stillness. You become the lamp that lights the world. Not because you set out to shine, but because you dared to stop hiding. So, dear one, walk slowly now. Let your feet feel the earth. Let your eyes receive the sky. Let your soul bow to the rhythm of the wind. And let your heart whisper, I am here. I am ready. I am enough. Because you are. You always have been. You always will be. One breath at a time. One choice at a time. One sacred percent again and again. Until the whole of your life becomes the teaching. And the Buddha smiles, not from afar, but from within you.